Okay. All right. So you are Matthew Brown. You, I know you used to be a tubist. I don't think that you play much anymore.
Nope.
Um, and you taught at Montclair State University. I met you through Barbara and had a quick lesson with you in Bartlesville, Oklahoma.
Yep.
Now I play in their symphony.
Oh,
Um,
really?
I
Cool.
do. Yeah. So I just have a few questions. So let's just start out. How did you know Barbara York?
So, I just contacted her out of the blue. I had come across her music. I I don't remember exactly where I saw, but I'm going to take a wild stab and say I think that her publisher had posted either a sound clip or a video, or it was where there's this really great tuba player that plays with a Coast Guard band, Adam Crow, and it was a clip of him playing her sonata. And I think he may have been the one that premiered it, so it might have been a recording of the premiere. And I listened to it and I thought, wow, this is a really great piece. And I was always looking for new music to play, and so I wanted to know more about who wrote this and looked into her music and ordered a bunch, and then just contacted her out of the blue. Um, I don't remember the first email I sent. It wasn't about doing a recording. It was probably something along the lines of, I just came across your music and I really like it and just wanted to touch base and introduce myself.
Nice. Yeah. Something that I've gotten from a lot of people, I think you're the fifth or sixth interview they've done, and she was extremely willing to talk and share and get to know you as a friend. And
Yes, very much so.
that was nice and very needed in in the composition world.
I think needed in the music world, period.
That too.
How many, you don't have to answer this question because we're recording, but I don't play anymore, so I don't mind answering and telling it. But how many musicians do you meet that are actually real? And Barbara York was real. What
Oh
you
yeah.
who you met and what you saw was who she was.
Yes.
Whereas I think the majority of musicians are not like that at all.
I think that tuba players in particular are probably some of the most real musicians. And I think the higher you get in the score,
Okay.
um, at least from my experience so far in the Midwest.
Okay.
So, okay. So you were the one that you and Christy, your wife, were the ones that commissioned How Beautiful.
Hmm.
And you do not have to answer any of these questions because I know how personal it is.
Hmm.
But it was written in memoriam for your son Eli,
Hmm.
who was born and passed on the same day. Um, and the first question I have about this is why did you choose Barbara for to memorialize Eli?
That's a great question, and don't feel bad about asking any questions. So after he died, we for us this was uncharted territory. We had had children, but we had never had a child pass away. So there's no normal, there's no like, okay, this is the way things are supposed to go. And I'll give you an example. One of our doctors, we after an appointment said, what you're about to experience is many things, but you're going to find that it's very strange. And you'll find that people will have many different reactions to it. Many of them are going to be negative. And we thought, he didn't really know what he was talking about. But sure enough, it was a strange experience, in addition to being a beautiful experience and an awful experience all in one. And what I mean by strange is not only the reaction of some people to events. Some people just ignored it. They didn't want to address it at all and would avoid it at all costs. I can kind of understand that. Um, some people had a very negative reaction to it. Um, I didn't understand that, and I think that's what he was getting at. But people sent money. So this is one of the more strange things. And we had no idea that this was going to happen. We got cards, and there was money in the cards. And we thought, well, what are we going to do with this? I don't really want to just spend it on something frivolous. We'd like to do something meaningful. And so we did two things. One was we took the money and we bought a tree and planted it in our front yard. And another was we talked and said, why don't we have a piece of music written? And uh, she was the only one that came to mind. At that point, we had been talking. I had performed a number of her pieces already, so my wife had heard them because she usually came to all my performances. And I loved her music. My wife loved her music. As you know from performing her music, audiences love her music. It's very approachable to anybody in an audience, whether or not they're a music aficionado or a tuba aficionado or just whoever. Um, and so it was just obvious that that was who we were going to talk to, and she was perfect for it. And I think what lent I think a lot of that was because it goes back to what we were talking about a few minutes ago. She was real, she was a cool lady, and you knew who she was and you could talk to her about things. And so the process of asking her to do this and then talking about what it was we were looking for, where I had no preconceived notions of what I wanted the piece to be. Um, So I just when I asked her about it and she agreed, I said, I want you to just run with it, and I will answer any questions you have about what the experience was like, but I don't I don't want it to be, X, Y, or Z. It's up to you. And so we had a phone conversation, and I also then wrote to her and answered some questions and just told her about the experience. But in talking to her, she was just easy to talk to. She's a real person. And so it was cathartic to talk to her about it and just tell her about the experience. And then, there was a waiting period where we were wondering, okay, I wonder what she's has planned for this. And when she finally sent the piece, and I read through it for the first time, well, actually, I think it was Brian that sent the piece, maybe, and I think he had sent some crappy like sound file, like a MIDI file. And so I listened to the MIDI file, and yeah, I remember listening to it, and the reaction was not positive or negative because, and that's just me. One of the things that uh, through that experience I learned about myself was that I tend to try not to react to things, and I can shut it off. And so I was shut off from it. So my reaction to it was neither positive nor negative. Uh, I like to stew on it for a bit before I have an opinion. And so after listening to this crappy MIDI file a few times and then finally having the opportunity to read through it, I just thought she nailed it. I thought, wow, this is perfect. And she did a great job in that video that you sent me of describing um, what she did, where she just stripped it down and kept it simple, and it was
Mhm.
beautiful, perfect.
Yeah. If I remember correctly, that one was the only one that she ever completely threw out because she had started writing. Um, Gail asked her this question, like, "Do you ever start writing something and then just completely just throw everything away?" And she said only once, and I'm pretty sure it was How Beautiful. And it's just she was just like she could not figure out how to start it,
Yeah,
so she just like scrapped what she did and started over.
I remember her telling me she struggled with it,
Hmm.
and um, yeah, she nailed it. So
Yeah,
yeah, I'd be really interested to know what she threw out, but at the same time, doesn't matter. The piece is perfect the way it is. So
yeah, yeah. The first time I ever saw the piece, I was like, "Oh, it's gonna be real easy." And then you start playing it, and you're like, "It's really not." And then it goes up real high, and then it has that Whitney Houston key change
mhm.
halfway through it. And
you know,
it's
she there was online forum somewhere where people were talking about different pieces, and that piece came up, and Barbara actually chimed in. Maybe you know what I'm talking about because I don't remember what forum it was, but I do remember it was in writing, where Barbara said that she felt that How Beautiful was extremely difficult to perform.
Mhm.
and you had different people chiming in, some well-known tuba players and some not so well-known, all saying, "No, it's not. No, it's not. I play it all the time. My students play it. I have my students play this." And I didn't say anything uh, because I don't think people, I don't think people got her a lot of times. She didn't say it was technically difficult.
Yeah.
It's just difficult, and it is because it's stripped down, and it's just you're exposed there. You got to come in on a high F at one point and not have it sound like complete fucking garbage. Uh, it's not easy. It's not terribly difficult technically, but musically, yeah, I think it's really difficult. And at that point, again, I didn't comment, but I had heard a number of performances, and I thought, oh, that's nice. Yeah, you don't think it's difficult, but you put that out. Okay.
Yeah, I performed it last week. You
Yeah,
commented
I
on.
listened to your recording. Sounded great.
Yeah. And there's a moment in the video, like the first couple of phrases, I kind of stumbled just a little bit. Hey, my dogs are going crazy. I'm gonna go put them in a room where they
Sure. Okay.
there's some sort of fire or something somewhere in the neighborhood, and
Oh gosh.
they were howling when you were talking a while ago. So
Ah,
I'm gonna edit this out, and then I'm just gonna go put them in the bedroom. So
take
give
your
me.
time.
Oh, I
Are
imagine
they
that.
okay?
Yeah, they just so our living room has a very, very big window, like enormous, and it's beautiful and lovely, and it's nice to have a lot of sunshine coming in. I wish it was in the backyard because every time a squirrel or someone at the church across the road or whatever, somebody walking by, it's World War III between the
Ah,
window and that. So I have Sousa, who she's the German Shepherd, and then we have two corgis, Frank and Hilly,
oh well.
and they're quite the bunch. I love them, but I every single interview that I've done this week, I've had to like mute, just
Ah,
you know. And if I was smart, I would just carry my desk down to the basement and lock myself down there, but I don't want to do that. So
well, the dogs don't bother me. I love dogs, so
I love dogs too. So what I was kind of saying about how beautiful, I think that if you, as an artist, not necessarily just as a tubist or euphonium player, um, if you are not thinking of something in your life that somehow invokes Eli in that piece when you're performing it, I don't think that you're doing it justice. When I was thinking about it uh, last week, you can tell in the performance because I was setting up there and I kind of bobbled the first couple of phrases. And then I started thinking about my sister and Barbara, who my sister died about 5 weeks before Barbara did.
oh god.
So it's just kind of this double whammy. And I haven't even, I'm getting to where I'm mostly okay with my sister because I knew it was going to happen eventually. I didn't know that Barbara was going to be so soon. And I have really not had the time to just process that she's gone, and going through these interviews, talking to people, putting the little website together for my project. It's been a healing process. And last week was kind of a culmination of, oh, wow, she really is gone. And I was just kind of at peace with it. And you can tell in the video when it kind of clicks there and really clicks in the heart too.
Yeah.
But if anyone is telling anyone that this piece is not technically hard to play, no, I mean, not really. But I don't know many tuba players that can hit a high E flat, pure and clear, like a newborn child,
Right.
or a high F, like a newborn child, and just make it sing. You don't get that a lot, even in some of the very high end players. Sometimes it's very muffled,
Right.
but
Well, I think there's a difference between being a great tuba player and a great musician, or being both.
yeah,
And um, I think there are a lot of great tuba players out there. And I don't know if it probably has something to do with the nature of the instrument. You know, if you first have musical inclinations, you may not be attracted to the tuba for obvious reasons. You might be more attracted to a piano or a violin. But there are there are both, and regardless of whether you are or not, you can strive to be. And I think there has to be elements of striving to be both when you perform a piece like this, because I remember the first time I played it in public. It's one thing to do it in a practice room or a signed out classroom when you're rehearsing it, but it's another to get on stage and hear the first chords of the piano and then come in and realize, oh, wow, I am pretty exposed here, and any little blips are going to be heard. Or if I just hold this note just a little bit too long, it's going to clash with what the piano. So there's a lot of technical challenges in it, but musical as well. And so I don't think it's a piece that just plays itself.
Yeah, that's a good assessment. There's one recording online. I cannot remember the name of the guy, but he posted it right around the time that she passed, and I think it's the best live performance that I've heard. Um,
Was this a guy that had he had an accompanist name that was a very like foreign name? I think I know what you're talking about, and
yeah,
yes, it was a really good performance.
yeah, I believe so. It was good. It was very good.
Yeah, yep,
Um,
yeah,
but you're right. Like if you listen to most performances that are put on YouTube, you're just like, yeah, it's easy, right?
yeah. I mean, it's you can play it. I don't know. There there are a number of performances that I've heard that have been recorded or videotaped and put on YouTube where they're really nice, but it's boring. It's just a boring piece, and it's not a boring piece at all. I don't think,
No,
and
no.
it comes across as very boring. There's one in particular, and I honestly don't remember who it is, but it's extremely slow, and it's painful to listen to. Oh my God.
Yes.
So,
Um, okay, so you've kind of referenced you've kind of danced around these a little bit. So Barbara used to like, so you said that, you talked to her, you wrote her emails. I think I recall her saying that Christy had written a letter explaining how she felt about it. Did you guys write letters to Barbara?
yeah, so we met Barbara too. I don't know if you knew this or not, but I had Barbara out here for a few days before I did the recording, and I can tell you about that in a little bit if you'd like. But when she was writing the piece, when we had asked her and she said yes, she asked. I know I spoke to her on the phone. I can't remember if Christy did or not, but we both then wrote to her and just shared some of our experiences in writing. I remember she wanted it in writing as well. And then my wife is a letter writer. It's something that she's gotten into, especially in the last year during the pandemic. And when I found out that Barbara was as sick as she was, I told Christy, and Christy wrote her a letter. And just last night when we were talking, she, I had to go do some teaching, and when I got home, she had watched the video, so we were discussing it, and she said, I think that she probably got the letter. I think the letter probably arrived after she died. So I said, I don't know.
Do you know when she sent it?
I thought that she had sent it several weeks before Barbara passed away, but maybe it was closer. I'm not sure.
Okay, so she died on November 6th, and about 11 days before that, she went down, and
Yeah,
it was just it was a no. Hospice came in,
yeah.
and
Well, I hope I'd like to think she got it, but I think she may have,
mm,
because I think that I know that I had told her about Barbara's health before that period, before she just went downhill,
yeah.
and yeah,
Th- I'll ask Megan to see if maybe her or Joe opened it and maybe read it to her, because I know that she was still lucid,
hmm.
and uh, Megan got to tell her that Joe Biden won.
Oh, that's cool.
So I'm like, I know she was happy about
Yep.
that. um, and that was the reason that she became an American citizen, was because she's like, I can't fucking do this again. Like,
Yep.
I'm not gonna just be here in this country and not participate. So,
Yeah.
but,
Well, that goes again, lends back to she's real, and
yeah.
I just I always connect well with people like that, and I connected well with Barbara because of that. Um, I shared a story with Christy last night. after I got home, we were talking about this, and I said the same thing to her. I said, "Yeah, Barbara was just a real person." I said, and then Christy brought up that she had mentioned Maria, the pianist that I worked with, and Barbara and Maria really hit it off. And I said, "Well, Maria was the same way. All of my all my best experiences in music, when I look back, there are more bad than good, but the in volume, but the quality, good far outweighs the bad. But the vast experiences that I had that were good, a vast number of them involved Maria Corley,
Mhm.
working with her. And not only was she just a phenomenal musician, but she was just a great person. And I shared this story with Christy. I said, when I went to, before I taught at Montclair, I was invited to be the guest artist there for an Tuba Fest, and it was on short notice because they had somebody that backed out, and I'm, a little over 2 hours away. So Jason asked if I would come and do it. I said, yeah, sure, as long as I can bring Maria, so I didn't have to go rehearse with another accompanist. So he said, sure. So Maria and I went to Montclair and did a recital. I don't remember what I played, but I know that I played the suite. That was the first time that I had performed the suite, Barbara's suite with Jason, and I probably played another one of her pieces. But I did a full recital with an intermission and got an encore, walked off stage, and in my typical style, I said, oh, I played like shit. And Maria, without missing a beat, looked at me and she said, if you're going to have that attitude after you get a standing ovation, go play in your fucking living room, and walked right the hell away from me. And I thought about it for a minute. And I thought, she's right.
Is
But
she was she also Canadian?
yes, yep, she is actually, yes. But that's what Barbara was like too. She just told it like it was, and I I always connected well with that. When Barbara came out here, she uh, she did a class with my students. I was teaching at Millersville at the time, and then I got to play and have Barbara accompany me on a few of her pieces, and she accompanied a few of my students on her works as well. But then Maria and I had a couple of sessions where we played all of the music that we were going to record for her, and it was great. She was a fantastic coach. She knew when to encourage us and just say, "Yep, you're on the right track." But there were a few instances, and I'll give you one here, where, for instance, her sonata, it opens with the tuba playing that bit that's supposed to sound like a shofar being played.
Mhm.
Well, I didn't know that, so I was playing it completely different, had a different idea. And she stopped us after I played it, and she had no problem telling me that I was way the hell off the mark. But she was also really good at explaining what her vision was and encouraging me to maybe try something else because it wasn't working. And for me personally, I always respond well to that, even if it is negative criticism, because somebody's just being honest with me. And she was honest. She was real.
Yeah, definitely. Um, I have I'm going to finish this set and then I have more questions about the album.
Okay.
Um, so there was a biblical reference. I forgot to grab the score. Um, did Barbara pick that or did you guys?
Barbara picked it.
Okay.
Yep. We gave her no parameters whatsoever other than to say this is what our experience was like, and we don't want it to be just like a sad, somber piece.
Okay.
But yeah, I was surprised when I saw that on the score. It didn't bother me or anything, but once I read the passage and then Barbara explained what the passage meant to her, it made perfect sense.
Yeah. There's two or three pieces. I know the other one that pops into my mind is De Profundis, the one that she wrote for Angelo Manzo for
Mm-hmm.
his farewell tour. And she picked it. He didn't say anything about it. And whenever she gave him the piece, he was like, why'd you pick that? And she's like, it just kind of came to me. And um, it turns out that he had that like written on his desk, like on a piece of paper or in his drawer or something. So every time he opened it, like it was just a weird coincidence. And
Oh wow. Huh.
um,
Hmm.
yeah, what I'm finding is Barbara. She's almost like I don't want to say a medium because mediums communicate with other, like
Mm-hmm.
ghosts and stuff. But she had this like innate ability to tap into your mind and bring out exactly what it was that you were thinking and put it in um, some sort of poetry or oral depiction. Um,
Yes.
and I, so my original project was my fiance is a baritone. So I think there's like one or two, maybe three pieces for tuba and voice, and it's usually tuba and soprano. And then there's that tuba and countertenor piece. But there's nothing for, like
Right.
so we had written letters to Barbara. We did it like 2 or 3 years ago, and I kind of waited and waited and waited because I had some issues with UMKC. I'll edit that out, but I didn't know if I was going to wind up getting my doctorate because I couldn't pass their fucking comprehensive exams, and I wound up doing that last year finally, and I had to fight tooth and nail to do that, and I'm not the only one. I'll just say that.
Okay.
So I kept putting it off and putting it off. And I knew that she was sick, but I didn't know that sick. And I had finally saved up enough money this last summer because I finally had a full time job. And I was like, oh, and she only wanted like $800. And I'm like, no. I'm like, I'm going to give you at least 1,000. I would have liked to have given her two or three because she was worth every penny.
Sure.
And she had two pieces in front of mine, and mine was kind of planned to be the last, at least the last tuba piece. And she didn't get mine done. I think Danny Rowland had one that didn't get done, and then there was I think it was a duet between Gail Robertson and Deanna Swoboda, and I think she had started that, but I don't think anything was done on it. So my original project was to kind of do what you did, record a second album of her music,
Oh,
uh,
cool.
of the more recent works, and that was going to be the centerpiece of it. And I kind of debated on doing chamber works of Barbara York because if you look at her catalog for low brass, there's like 16 pieces that involve tuba or euphonium in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm by no means a great euphonium player, but I can hack it a little bit. And um, but that was the original project, and she died, and I was like, okay, I got to change. So she never. I've talked to Brian about this. I've talked to her Megan, her daughter. Like she would never like self-aggrandize herself. Like she never built a website.
Yeah.
She never. Um, it, she was very real. Okay,
Oh, yeah.
she was not in this for John Mackey money or John Coriolano type money.
Yep.
And I don't think that any tuba composer could do that. But Barbara could have made a lot more money if she charged more, and
Absolutely.
at the end of the day, it just simply wasn't about that for her. And my worry, whenever she died, I said, there's not a place that remembers her. There's not like some sort of community other than her Facebook page that is a memorialization and a staple of this is who this was. This is the information about her. These are her pieces. Please go play them. Here's reference recordings. Here's interviews with commissions. So just things like that. And so I said, well, I'm going to build a website. I'm going to do a website, and I'm going to annotate all of the tuba works, some of the euphonium, and some of the chamber works. And I'm actually going to wind up doing all of the low brass stuff. I think it's like 42 pieces. Um, all of the tuba stuff's done. I'm still waiting on some chamber stuff, and um, I wrote a better biography for her because hers was it was short. And I don't think that biography should be like lengthy by any means, but it was just like it was very humble,
Yeah.
you know. Um, so what I've got so far is I've got that done. I need to run it by Megan just to double check things, but I pulled most of it from the interviews that we did last summer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then my committee was like, "This is great, but we want to see you do some recordings as well." So next Thursday, I'm going up to Kansas City and going to do a 6-hour recording session of 5 of her pieces.
What are you recording?
Directions.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a number 2. I don't think there's a recording out there of that.
I don't
Um,
think there is. No.
yeah. Three Romances, which I think is probably my favorite, and then Elegy for an Angel, which might be my favorite. I can't decide. And Sea Dreams, which is
Yeah.
awesome. Um, and I kind of wanted, a couple of those are really accessible for young tubists, especially lower level undergrad, advanced high school students. So I kind of sold it to the committee, high committee, if you're watching this. Hey, if these students are looking at this, their professor can say, hey, go to barbieyork.com and look up this information about this.
Yeah.
Something that kind of put this in my mind was when I was doing a little bit of research for my second round of comprehensive exams. Professor Davis, who's the wind symphony guru at UMKC, has you write 2 pages on 5 different concerti for tuba and wind band. So, I found tons of information about Michael Daughtry on his website. I found tons of information on uh, Gary Zeke on his website. Um, the guy that James Grant, Three Furies guy. I
Mm-hmm.
found tons of information about him on his website. And then I go to find information about Barbie York. And of course, I know most of it just in my head, but you have to be able to cite it somehow. And the only thing that I can find is, YouTube recordings, which there are a ton, more YouTube recordings of Barbie York than probably any other composer.
Mm-hmm.
And then her little bio that she uses that's on the Cimarron website, attached to each piece. And I said, no, this ain't it.
Right.
So that's kind of where this inspiration came from.
Okay.
Um,
Oh, what an awesome project.
I hope it is. I'm not a website builder, but I'm really good at sewing together and piecing together things. And I think if I pair that and then if my committee loves it, then I'll be like, here, release this to the public. It's yours. I'll just pay to keep it up every year. But
Yeah.
um, Brian Dowdy was like, man, you can start selling her music. I was like, but you sell her music. He was like, no, like you can sell it through the website and I'll still get most of the commission, but you'll get something. And I was like, well, maybe, but we're not going to go there yet.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that's just why I'm doing this. And it's like Gail, whenever we were doing these interviews, like she opens one of the interviews, I think it's actually the last one, and going back and like knowing that that was the last interview, you can just kind of tell that Barbara was just really at peace.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, Barbara, I was talking to one of my colleagues about, what would you ask a composer? Like if we got to go back and talk to Mozart and talk to Beethoven, what kind of questions would you ask? And so, she rattled off a few, and I want to make sure that the people that she worked with are also memorialized, because there are stories that you just told that I know because I knew Barbara so well, but the undergraduate tuba player in 20 years, they're not going to know
Right.
unless it's told.
Right.
So, so that's why I'm doing this.
I think that that's fantastic, honestly, and it needs to be done. So I had no idea why you were doing these interviews. I was under the impression it was just you knew that Barbara wasn't doing well and you wanted to, you know, get some things on video, which is also a noble cause. But um, this is great. So if there's any way I can help out, please let me know.
Yeah, yeah. After I get past this academic part, um, I'll have a lot more artistic freedom,
Mhm.
um, and I can kind of do whatever the hell I want, and I don't have to stay in a box. But you know, how jumping hoops and
Oh
yeah,
yeah, yep, I get it.
the wonderful
Uh,
part of academia. But
yeah. You mentioned you're recording directions. Are you recording with band or with piano?
just piano.
Okay.
Yeah,
I've
I
never heard it done with piano.
I like it. I think that one was the one that was written. That was Mike Fisher. So the second sonata was written for a guy named John Hardinsky. I have no idea who John Hardinsky is, and I'm going to try to reach out to him someday. But
John
um,
Hardisky used to play with, I think, one of the Air Force bands, maybe in Ohio, somewhere in the Midwest, and no longer plays.
okay, That
I might be able to find him if you can't track him down.
I I creeped on him on Facebook. He's around.
Oh, okay. All right.
Um, I just I'm trying to get big staples like How Beautiful is one of the staples of Barbie York. I interviewed Andy Smith the other day for Through the Tunnel. God, that piece is awesome, and
Yeah,
he just had some good information as well. Um, so I kind of went off totally on
that's okay.
tangents. Um, okay, so I kind of just asked this from everyone, just for young tuba players, maybe old tuba players that are wanting to commission a new work. Um, do you have any advice for those people?
Yeah, just do it. Don't give yourself every reason in the book not to. Give yourself a reason to do it. Um, I think I'm an expert at coming up with every reason not to do something.
Me too.
Okay, well, I do remember being hesitant in asking Barbara and being hesitant. I've commissioned other pieces from other composers and always being hesitant because I think, oh, I'm going to have to either do some sort of consortium or find the money, and I'm not going to be able to do that. And I have no doubt that there's people that will think the same thing. Just do it. Just talk to people. Um, I don't remember what Barbara charged me for How Beautiful. Whatever it wasn't enough. And I do remember thinking, wow, that's low. And the same deal with doing the recording. Um, I can't remember if we even worked anything out for the recording, but I can tell you this: after I did the recording, I sent her a box that had, I don't know, maybe a dozen recordings in, and just said, like, let me know when you want more.
She
And
gets one.
she wanted to buy them from me, and I was like, no, just you can have them. It's okay. She wasn't interested in that part of it. That wasn't why. I mean, you said this earlier. That wasn't why she was doing this. And I think that that's something to remember if you're going to commission a work from a composer. We're all musicians, and we're really not doing this to make the big bucks, especially if you're a tuba player. You're not going to get wealthy doing this. So as a composer, they're kind of in the same boat. They're not going to get wealthy. They're probably piecing together, 8 or 9 different uh, income streams to make some semblance of a living. So just talk to them, see what you can work out. I know that she was thrilled to come out to Millersville and have the opportunity to work with my students. And then um, we were thrilled to have her there to play for her and get her feedback on doing this recording before recording her music. That was invaluable. So just talk to them. Go for it. The worst that can happen is you talk to somebody and they say no, or you can't work it out. But then you at least have that experience. So just do it. Don't give yourself a reason to not do anything. Don't
Great,
talk yourself out of it.
great advice. Um, okay, so you've talked a little bit about the album so far. How did that come about? Um, how did you fund it? Um, I know that Barbara worked with you. Obviously, you've told us that she came out, and just talk about the album.
Okay. Um, I always enjoyed playing solo works, and it didn't matter to me that I would have maybe like 5 or 10 people in the audience. I always took it seriously and just enjoyed the process of working up new material and learning new material and presenting it to people. And when I started teaching at Millersville, I had a budget that I was given to do something with, and so I started this symposium where I had some guest artists come in and we did solo works. And the first one had a number of different guest artists come in, and some of them said, "Oh, you should record. You should record something." And I always thought they were nuts because I never thought I was that swift of a tuba player. But they kept saying it enough that I thought, well, okay, maybe I should do a recording because at the very least it'll be something that my kids have. And then I started to seriously consider it and started thinking about different literature that I like. And there were a number of different things I considered. There's a fantastic piece by Claude Baker called Omaji and Fantasy. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's an homage to different composers. So Messiaen and Crumb, and it's kind of out there, but it's just beautiful. It doesn't get performed because for a number of different reasons. It's really hard. Uh, it's hard technically, it's hard musically, and it's long, and it comes on sheet music that's like giant, and you have to have like three music stands in front of you, and you have to find a pianist that's willing to do it because it has the piano part's really hard, and yeah. Anyway, I thought about doing an album where maybe that was the centerpiece, and then doing some works, newer works that I like around that. And I thought, oh, that's nobody's going to want to hear that. And, I want to hear that, but I was weird. I liked stuff like that. So I had already been performing Barbara's music, and I thought, well, I wonder if I could get away with doing a whole album of Barbara's music. So my initial idea, and you may have to edit some of this out, um, my initial idea was to record with band. And I had actually worked it out with a band in New England, and it was just one problem after another. And the straw that broke the camel's back was we had a recording session set up. I hired a recording engineer. They worked out the recording location. It was somewhere where they rehearsed or performed. And I got a call. I don't remember what the time frame was, but it was really close to the recording. I worked out having a producer there. I mean, I had all of the boxes checked and was rehearsing music. I actually even went and rehearsed with them. And shortly before the recording session, they say, "Oh, we can't use that venue, but we're working on another one. There's this junior high school we think might be good." And so I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to spend thousands of dollars of my own money that I really can't afford to spend to go record with you in a venue I've never seen and that my recording engineer has never seen. No. And when I talked to them about this, I didn't get a good response. And so I said, screw it. We're not going to do it. And I just canceled it. And so the pieces that I was doing with band were Barbara's works. I was going to record directions and her concerto. And then I can't remember. I think I was going to put the suite on there for piano, tuba, euphonium, and maybe one other thing. So then I started thinking, well, maybe I can get away with doing all of Barbara's works and just do it with piano. And that's how the idea came up. And so I looked at all of the music that she had written at the time and thought I have to come up with something that's not going to be one of the same sounding pieces after another. So, for example, How Beautiful followed up by Elegy for an Angel, followed up by Three Romances, where it would be a beautiful album, but it might be a beautiful album to take a nap to, or to lull you into a relaxed state. I wanted it to have some variety. So that's when I looked at all the pieces and thought, okay, I think if I do the concerto and the sonata and How Beautiful and the suite and throw in Ario So Gloria, I think that'll work. Put them in the right order. And ran it past her. She said, "Yep." She was very supportive from the get go, which was awesome. You know, Something to consider. I was talking to my wife about this last night as well. When after she watched the video and Barbara mentioned Maria, I shared a number of things with my wife she didn't know. I said, after I got out and stopped playing, and it wasn't that long after, I started to reflect back on all of the opportunities that I had, and the people who I had the opportunity to work with. And I wrote to both Barbara and Maria. But I said to my wife, I wrote to Maria, and I told her how grateful I was to be able to work with her, and that I meant it. It wasn't just like a passing thing, like this is to brighten your day. I meant it. This is something that means a lot to me, and I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. I'm so grateful I had the opportunity to make music with you and to do these to have these meaningful experiences with you. And with Barbara, it was the same way because she could have not been supportive of this. She could have said, "No, I'm not into that." and that would have been the end of that. You know, I, I, I suppose I still could have done it, but I don't know if that would have been legal in terms of her giving permission through Brian in order to record the works. Probably not. So it certainly could have gone another way, but she was extremely supportive from day one. And one of the things that after she passed away, I wrote to Megan, who I've never met Megan, but I wanted to write to her and just let her know what her mom meant to me. And I said, I will forever be grateful for the fact that she was as supportive as she was of me. She didn't care that I wasn't a well-known tuba player and I wasn't the best tuba player on the planet. That didn't matter to her. We just connected. She liked my playing, and that was enough for her. And for me, for who I am, this is another thing I was sharing with Christy last night. I have such a hard time wrapping my head around that. I'm the type of person that thinks people just say that and it's just words. I like your playing. I really, I'm a fan of you. But she meant it. And when I start to really think about that, that blows my mind. Like, I'll be forever grateful to have known somebody that was that supportive of what I was doing. And so she was supportive of the recording project. And so once it was stripped down, I no longer had to deal with an entire band, and I was just dealing with Maria, who was a friend, and Barbara, who I considered a friend. Um, then it was pretty easy. I funded it by myself. I borrowed some money to uh, to make the budget. I borrowed a little bit of money from my mom, who then just said, "Don't worry about paying it back." She was happy to support me, which I'm grateful for that support as well. I had a supportive wife who said, "Yep, go rehearse, go do this, do what you need to do." Um, the recording engineer that I used was a recording engineer who had recorded a brass group that I was with, Andy Bove from New York, and a great opportunity came out of doing my solo recording. We did, I think we did it over 2 days. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look, but they were like long days. And in order to keep the cost down, I worked out a deal with Andy so that I was doing the preliminary editing, what we'd call mapping. So I was listening to all of the takes and saying, okay, we're going to use this from here to here, and then we're going to patch in here and stuff like that. So he didn't have to do it. And the reason he was willing to work that out with me is because I had done some of that on this previous recording with a brass group. Well, after I did the mapping on my own album, and he started going through and he realized these are exactly the same cuts I would have picked. He asked me if I wanted to work for him. So yeah. So for the rest of my musical career, I had another income stream working for a recording engineer and had some really great opportunities uh, through there to to not only edit some albums of some great brass performers, but go be a part of some recording sessions as well. I kind of got a little bit off on a tangent there, but that's how the recording
Hey,
came to be. So
yeah, I mean, if this video helps anyone, like you kind of just helped me because I am in the middle of not going from music to another career, but right now I'm a community college band director and I hate my life.
oh,
um,
really?
so I'm looking at K through 12 jobs, and I had an interview a few weeks ago. I didn't get it, but it was great experience. I just got an interview for next week that I feel very strongly about. So
Good luck.
yeah, thank you.
We have to be happy, and that's a big. When I watched the video from that you sent me, um, of course it was emotional watching it for obvious reasons. But at one point, Barbara said that, and I wrote this down. She said that writing the piece didn't help me enough, and that got me. I didn't know she felt like that. I had told her that I wasn't going to play anymore, and she asked why, and so I wrote to her and I explained why. And I'll give you the short version. There were a lot of reasons, but the biggest reason was that all the joy just left over, and it wasn't a sudden thing, but over the course of 8, 10 years, no matter how much more I practiced or how much more I tried to fill the void, there was just no joy left in it anymore. And so it was obvious I needed to just stop. And I don't ever regret it. Um, it's difficult when I talk to musicians who ask about it, they can't believe that I don't think about it or it doesn't bother me or I have no regrets. Um, it's just not on the radar anymore. I don't think about it. And when I talked to Barbara about it, one of the things she said was, "Well, could I convince you to play again if I wrote you something?" And I thought, "Oh my gosh, that is the sweetest thing." Uh, but I had no idea that she felt some responsibility in this. And I wish I would have known. So I could have told her she bore no responsibility. If anything, she helped keep me going longer.
Something that I forgot to ask. So Brian used to call her the death composer. Right around 2008 to 2012, like almost all of her pieces were memorializations or something involving death. And um, did did going through the process of how beautiful and realizing it and performing it, did that help heal you and Christy? I asked that knowing that I don't think that a piece of music can heal totally,
Right.
but
Sure. Yeah, I think it helped. Yeah. Um, well, absolutely, it did. It 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 gave us some purpose afterwards. After he passed away, um, and as I had mentioned before, having this money and not knowing what to do with it, it gave us a good sense of purpose. Like, okay, we're doing something meaningful here. These people reached out to us and were kind enough to send us some money. We can do this, and it's meaningful. But I think in another way that maybe isn't what you're referring to, it still helps. Other people are playing this
mm,
and they're looking at the top of the sheet music where it says written in memory of Eli Reuben Brown, briefly with us. What better way to keep somebody alive and to give meaning to their existence than to have some beautiful music played that was written for their birth and death?
I can't remember if in the clip that I sent you, does she talk about Velvet Brown and the dancer?
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay. And how Velvet uses that for, I think it,
She
I,
said that she performs it for families who have lost children. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because
I mean, how incredible is that? What? So absolutely, that all uh, helps with healing. Sure, to know that something good came out of this. Not only a beautiful piece of music, but maybe a beautiful piece of music that helps other people.
yeah, and it's a fucking tuba.
That's right.
Uh,
That's right. How about that? Yeah.
I need to that just popped in my head, so I need to reach out to Velvet and see, because I'm really curious about what people's reactions are to it. So
Hmm.
yeah. Um. So is there anything else? I have two more questions. This is the first one. Is there anything else that someone that's going to be playing How Beautiful, is there anything that you think that they need to know that we haven't covered, that I haven't asked? Um,
No, I don't think so. I think Barbara said it best. It's stripped down and simple. Keep it simple.
all right. Okay, so I ask everyone this that I am interviewing. It's kind of a hard question, and people are always like, "Oh, I don't know," but I'm doing this for her family.
Hmm.
What do you think Barbara York's legacy is?
Well, I don't know a whole lot of composers, but I do know some. And so right now, I'm thinking of a few others. And when I think of them, I immediately think of their music. But when I think of Barbara, first thing that comes to mind is not her music. It's who she was. She was this crazy lady that you could talk about anything with, and you could just be yourself with. And that was awesome. The second thing that comes to mind is her music and how much I loved it and the reaction that I would get from performing it. Not necessarily about my performance, but about the piece. Uh, it was just so accessible. I'd get up before I played a piece and say, what you're about to hear is this, and it's a piece of programmatic music, and this is what it's about or who it was written for. Boom, play it, they get it. You know, there's a lot of pieces. I think the vast majority of pieces, especially written for tuba, because there's a lot of bad tuba music out there. And here we are playing this, as you said, it's a fucking tuba, and we're trying to make it sound beautiful and make some music with it, and you're taking a piece of music that is just awful and trying to make some semblance of good noise out of it that an audience will appreciate. Barbara made that easy. It was a no-brainer. It's just, and I think it goes back to just who she was. She was real. She was a cool lady.
Yeah. My favorite conversations with Barbara were typically over the phone when she had been drinking wine.
Yep.
I have so much dirt on like high-end tuba players, and I can't tell a soul except Megan. But
Oh, I want to know some. I don't work in music anymore. I want to hear them. I
I'll tell
probably
you,
heard some of them from her. So
I'll tell you after I turn the recording off.
okay, that's fine.
Yeah. Um, I what I think Barbara York's legacy is, and what I'm kind of piecing together from this is, tuba literature as a whole, I think right now it's at a pretty good spot. Um, 10, 15, 20 years ago, kind of sucked, you
Oh yeah.
know? Um, I started college in fall of 2005, and I mean, there's Vaughn Williams, John Williams, Gregson, Coetzee, stuff like that. Um, but now you've got Jennifer Higdon, you've got Barbara York. Um, I think Omar Thomas is doing a commission for tuba. There's a lot more, and it's not necessarily diversity staples, but there's just a lot more music happening for tuba. And I think that something that Barbara did was she filled a role. And I kind of refer to her music as a genre because I'm all about program building. Whenever you do a recital, you got to have something for yourself that you just absolutely love. You need to play something that the audience is really going to identify, and you got to sell the shit out of it. You need to play something for the advancement of the tuba in terms of technicality, just for the sake of this is what the tuba is capable of, something that's going to kick your ass. You got to play something for mom. And then I can't remember what the fifth category is, but um, I did Pittsburgh, Kansas is surprisingly, for as small of a town as it is, very, very supportive of the arts. And she was asked by the Pittsburgh Treble Clef Club, I think 2 summers in a row, to present concerts of just her music. And I played both of them. And um, one of them was, I mean, it was like an hour and a half or two of just her music, and no one got bored.
Yeah.
And it's because there was like, of course she has. I call composers have a language. They have their own language, but she said no. I just have a style. It's not a language. And I was like, okay, um, but she definitely had a style. Um, but we played conversations with alto sax and euphonium. We did the suite for tuba and euphonium, and we actually used horn instead of euphonium.
Mm-hmm.
We did Elegy for an Angel. We did the Four Paintings by Grant Wood. Um, there was a vocalist who sang some stuff from Colette, who, I found a copy of the book. I'm waiting on it to come in from Interlibrary Loan, but it's not printed anymore. I don't know where the music score is, so I'm hoping that Megan might have access to it. And after I get done with all this, I'm going to try to start piecing that part of her life together too, because she won a freaking Dora Mavor Moore Award for that.
Hmm.
And I think it was the first or second year that those awards existed. She's kind of a pioneer in Canada. She was nominated for a Juno Award for um, A Butterfly in Time.
Yeah.
The LA Times did an article about it. You know, um, but she had such a varied style, and everything that she did spoke to audience members in their own way, and it lets the performers speak and sing.
Hmm.
um, Something that Travis Scott and I have kind of formed out of those interviews that we did was it's almost like she gave permission for us to sing. You know, um, in academia we get very astute. Um, thank God at UMKC that's just not the case. They love everything, and they're huge proponents of let's play new music by living composers. So I was so lucky to have that experience there, especially with Tom. Like um, almost every single recital that those students did had some sort of, this student wrote this. Some of it was absolute bullshit, but a lot of it was real not bullshit. Um, and yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this, but okay.
No, that's. I think you hit on a good point. Well, a number of good points, but she did have a very varied style. Um, I in listening to what she said in the video you sent me, um, where she expressed concern about it being too much of her music. And she said she likened it to, do I want to hear a whole concert of Beethoven? No. And I agree. No, I wouldn't want to hear that either. But she had enough variety that it's not listening to an entire concert of Beethoven. It's listening to a nice variety. And I think that um, hits on another point that you made where you said it's almost like she gave us permission to sing. I don't think she was writing for the tuba. She was just writing music.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a mistake that a lot of composers have fallen into and will continue to fall into. Oh, I'm writing a piece for tuba.
Yeah.
She wasn't writing for tuba. She was just writing.